I have had the chance to work now in almost every setting. And I started out as a paraprofessional, and I worked in a self-contained center school for kids with severe cognitive disabilities. So those are kids with IQs of 55 and below. So it was a really extreme group. And I'll tell you, I was doing that just working my way through college. And I learned a lot about disability by being in that setting. But my major was actually general ed, and I went through and got my degree to teach middle school. And I became a middle school language arts teacher. And to this day, that's still, honestly, it was the most fun job I ever had. I mean, I know you have to be crazy to teach middle school, but I am. And so it really was the most fun job I've ever had. And I didn't even know that we were doing inclusion at my school, honestly, until I got the Inclusion Teacher Award. They're like, wow, you did a great job with the kids with disabilities. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I did not realize they were here. And so it was interesting because as a gen ed teacher, what I kind of learned is that depending on your teaching style and how you view a classroom, inclusion can be somewhat invisible depending on who we're including and how we're including. And so I went from one extreme of teaching kids with really significant needs to teaching kids with mild disabilities in a general ed setting, just kind of holistically. And because I was a language arts teacher, I did a lot of reading, writing, workshop things. So the disabilities, everybody did look the same to me. How many of you guys are parents? Where are my parents in here? All right, good. Good. Anybody have twins? You can raise your hand. You're too tired to raise your hands? I understand. I am the parent of twins, and let me tell you something. What I've learned is kids are different, no matter if they're born at exactly the same time. Everybody's different. So it's been kind of interesting. I've looked at that as a teacher. And I decided, I would love to tell you that I went into the field of special education where I am now, because I had like this big heart and I wanted to make a difference, in the lives of kids with disabilities. I didn't. That's not why I did it. I live in Florida. And when you're young and you live in Florida, your goal is always to live closer to the beach. So, in my 20s, I'm like working at this school far from the beach, and I'm thinking, hey, I want to live closer. Oh, I need to be more marketable. So I shamelessly got a degree in special education, so I'd be more marketable and move closer to the beach. And it worked, because I got a job teaching kids with severe emotional disturbance. Anybody teach that population? Oh, somebody reach over and rub their back while I'm talking. Let me tell you, if teaching middle school language arts was the best job I ever had, teaching kids in a self-contained center school, kids with severe emotional disturbance, was the most, honestly, it was the toughest job. But it wasn't tough because of the kids. It was tough because of all the factors surrounding the kids that I couldn't change. It broke my heart every day. Let me tell you, when you get a call at your job saying, hey, don't put John on the bus today, his parents don't want him, they have moved, they have not told us their address, and you're like, what? It's crazy. And so what I learned, from that experience was, it's not, it's not the kid, it's the behavior, and the behaviors come from something, and it's this big puzzle. And so my whole job there was to figure out puzzles. And it was hard, because it was hard to filter out my heart in all of it. But I went from, gen ed to self-contained center school, and I never thought I'd be thinking about inclusion. And I actually tried to get out of teaching. No offense. I wasn't trying to get out of teaching, but I wanted to get my PhD. And so I resigned, and I went to sign up for classes. Now, some of you guys are young, and you might not know this, but in the old days, you had to go to a university. You had to go there in person. It was a crazy time. It was weird. You actually went there, and you signed up for stuff, and then you talked to people. It was so crazy. So I was in the university, signing up for classes. And one of my friends comes running and says, oh, Becky, I've been looking everywhere for you. You got to come interview for this job at my school. We're doing something really cool this year called inclusion. And this was in the early 90s. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Get out of here. I'm not teaching now. Look at me. I'm in the university. I'm getting my PhD. She's like, no, seriously. We're going to do something called inclusion. And we're going to use something called co-teaching. And it's going to be great. I'm like, Janine, I don't know what you're talking about. no, it's going to be great. We're going to take all the kids with disabilities. We're going to put them in the general classroom. I'm like, that sounds like a train wreck. Get out of here. And then she said the one thing, that always got me. Again, I was still young. She's like, Becky, if you come in and interview for this job right now, I'll take you out on the boat afterwards. Why didn't you lead with that? Of course. Of course I will come right now. So I went, honestly. I went and interviewed for a job that I did not want because I shamelessly wanted to go out on a boat. And I told my friend, I said, I will go right now. I'm going in these flip-flops and these shorts because I do not want a job. She said, that's fine, just come. And this school had decided to start, in Hillsborough County, which is Tampa area, they had decided to start kicking off a big inclusion movement. And they did it without a lot of thought. But they committed, go big or go home. And so they call me in to interview. And I keep saying things like, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. No, we're going to take all the kids with disabilities. We're going to put them in the classroom. I said, okay, and so what's my job in there? They said, well, you're going to co-teach. You're going to get in there and work with the other teacher. And I kept saying, I don't know how that looks. I don't know what you mean. What is that going to be? And their answer to me was, well, it's going to be whatever you make it. I'm like, that's my job description? Come and invent something? I was like, that's ridiculous. But the fun thing about it was, if you've never had the luxury of interviewing for a job that you don't want, it's very liberating. Because every single thing they asked me, I just answered honestly. They said, oh, well, tell us what your strengths are. I said, oh, my strengths. Well, I'm very good at teaching writing. I'm very good at changing behavior and shaping behavior. And I'm very good with technology. They're like, oh, that's great. That's great. What are your weaknesses? I said, oh, boy. Whew. Well, I'm bad with paperwork. Y'all don't want me to do those IEPs. Y'all probably get sued. I'm terrible with paperwork. Don't put me in charge of the legal document. No, sir. They're like, oh, okay, we can get you support for that. I'm like, really? All these years, nobody told me that. I'm like, all right. They said, anything else? I said, yes, listen. I said, I'm sorry, but I got to tell you, I am late. Whew, I'm late everywhere, every day. They're like, what? Nobody had ever answered that, apparently, in a job interview. I said, no, seriously, I'm late every day. They're like, oh, okay. I'm like, what? I said, no, seriously. When I call and tell you I'm having car trouble, that means I'm having trouble getting in my car. And they were so desperate to have somebody come take this job that they still offered me. How do you not take a job when you're standing there in flip-flops and shorts and you tell them you're going to be late every day and then you're not going to do the paperwork? And they still want you to come. So I took this job thinking, I have to see it. If they're this desperate, I at least have to see what it looks like. So I fell into inclusion. I will be honest, I loved being a teacher in a self-contained center school. I loved being a self-contained teacher because I loved my students and their needs were so specific and I knew I was helping them. And that's the truth. So I never would have chosen inclusion. I really wouldn't have. But I put myself in this setting because I was just professionally curious at this point. It's like, I couldn't walk away from the fire. I mean, it sounded so crazy. And I learned something, I learned something within 2 weeks of being in an inclusive setting. The first thing was, it was, honestly, objectively, it was the best thing for our students. I have to tell you. Because if the goal was to not be able to pick out kids with differences in our setting, you could not walk in and say, oh, that's a kid, with a learning disability or emotional behavior. You couldn't. So if that was the point of it, it was working. But I'll tell you also, and everybody has lived different experiences with inclusion. For me, for those first few weeks, it was the hardest thing I ever did. The hardest thing, because I wasn't sure what my role was. I wasn't sure how we as a group were going to get to where we wanted to be. I wasn't sure how the kid who's reading on a 2nd grade level in an 8th grade language arts class, I wasn't sure how that kid was going to be successful. And it was a lot to figure out, and it felt overwhelming. And, I had the luxury that a lot of people don't, which is, I truly, when they said come and build it, they meant it. So we kind of built what inclusion was for us, and we built stuff. But I have never learned more, and probably you guys have had the same experience, about teaching than I have as a parent. This is my new favorite picture. That is my son getting the Reading Student of the Year award. He's thrilled. And the best thing about that, I mean, that is so him. My son is not disabled. My son is disinterested. And I would suggest to you guys that as we think today and as you guys think tomorrow, one of our biggest problems isn't the kids with disabilities. It's the ones who are disinterested. So one of the other things I've learned over time is the things that we do for one group of kids can really benefit all of the kids. And so if we think of inclusion not as something that's being done to us, but as an opportunity to kind of recharge and revamp, I think that we really can go back and make changes in our schools, in our districts. And it takes people being ready to commit. And sometimes it's hard because we're not sure why. So where are you? I'm just curious. Fist of 5. Not great yet. Haven't done a lot with it yet. Or 5 is, my school has a great climate for inclusion. My school is ready for inclusion. In your school, what's the climate for inclusion? Anywhere from this being terrible to 5 being really good. Everybody's so ready to do this well. Where are you, do you think? Fist of 5. I see some 3s, I see some 1s, some 2s. Good. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, right? Right? Okay, good. So I would say we have about a good 2.5 average, just looking around. A good strong 2.5. Now here's the thing about it. Here's the thing about it. It's hard. You guys are obviously either, committed or somebody made you come. But you're probably the ones who are supposed to go back and help be the ones to create and figure out and how to, either you have a culture that's been instilled and it's not working and somebody asks you to come help fix it, or you've been told, go find out what all this means and see if we can do it. My goal is to make sure today that you have some information that can help you no matter where you are with that specific, broad goal. But I'll tell you, one of the first things that you guys need to be sure that your colleagues everywhere understand is that everything's changing anyway. Everything's changing anyway. And you know what? As we go through these times of change, adding this layer of inclusion gives us actually a framework for revamping. No Child Left Behind is, going back to ESEA, Elementary Secondary Education Act. I was in a meeting in Washington, D.C., and a representative stood up and said, this was several years ago now, he said, everybody repeat after me, no child left behind. So we're all like, okay, no child left behind. He said, all right, say it again. We're like, no child left behind. He said, now never say those 4 words together, ever. And we're like, what? He said, the federal government is backing completely off of that language because in the minds of educators, those 4 words have become so synonymous with compliance that it has killed critical thinking in schools. And any of us who have been around a little while, you've seen it. My own kids now. Do you know, I live in Volusia County, Florida. We have standards-based grades. Do you know that the grades that my kids get on the report card, 70% of their grade is based on their performance on a single computer-based standards-based test every marking period, and only 30% is based on their work in your classroom. So it's controversial to be sure, but I will tell you the other side of it as a parent. I at least know what my kids know and what they don't know. But what's really killing my daughter, my son's twin sister, is that her brother is doing just as well as she is, and he works half as hard. Because here's Jackson. Jackson will come home and say, hey, Mom, great news. He talks like he's from Jersey. I don't know why. There's nobody in my family who talks like that. He's always wanted to be this little, badass. Hey, Mom, guess what? I've already mastered all the science standards, so I'm good for the next few weeks. What do you mean mean you're good for the next few weeks? No, I mean, seriously, you know what I mean. I'm like, no, I don't. I want you to sit down and work. I want you to just sit down and work. But he already knows. He knows he can't get lower than a C in that class. He's the same kid who in second grade came home from school saying, the first year they got letter grades, hey, Mom, do you like Michael Jackson? I'm like, sure, I like him fine. He goes, oh, well, you know that song ABC Easy as 1, 2, 3? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, if you like that song, you're going to love my report card. Because sure enough, he had A's and B's and C's. I said, baby, how do you get a C in second grade? I go to his teacher, I say, Valerie, because of course I handpick his teachers. I say, well, how did Jackson get a C in math? I know he knows all of this math. She said, Becky, let me show you his workbook. He has a workbook in which whatever little scrap of paper he manages to pull out, that's what he turns into you. That's what you get to grade. And 3/4 of the sheet is still in his workbook, and his teacher refuses to go and grade it in the workbook. So she grades the little quadrant that he manages to lazily rip out and turn in. Because he does not care about your grades. And it's tough for me as a parent, you know? I mean, I'm telling you. It's an interesting conundrum, and it always has been. His sister, meanwhile, works so hard. She is the kid all of you wish you had. If you tell Zoe Hines to do something, she does it. You know, and so it's aggravating to her that her brother is completely the opposite. But the thing is, my son's a great critical thinker. My son is the one that you want to solve a problem, not my daughter. She's waiting for somebody to tell her how. So it's interesting. You know, and we have to create places where both things are valued somehow. And there's a recognition that honestly, we have killed critical thinking, and we do have to figure out how do we get it back. And it's really hard for us as educators, even me, because I'm preparing teachers. In Florida, do you know they trace back the performance of your students to which university you went to and who taught your class that you're performing well or not in. So if you have low reading scores, they will track it back to the university you went to and who taught your reading methods courses. And it's on me. Same with behavior. There's that level of data tracking now. So we're all in this together, believe me. There's competition now. I think Lisa mentioned some of the virtual school things that are out there, and she mentioned that this morning. She steals my slides. But there's so many options now for education and ways for kids to get information. And they are all digital natives. They know how to find information. The problem is they don't know what to do with it. You know, and parents who are frustrated, they find places for the kids to go to school. I have a 14-year-old stepdaughter who, you know, she's in high school. We signed her up for an online class just because there was no reason for her to get up as early as she was going to have to get up. And I've got other kids to take other places, and I've done other online things because my poor kids are guinea pigs. I make them all take online. I make them do every test, every online thing, because I have to see how it works. She does just as well and learns just as much if I sign her up for an online section as she does in some of her face-to-face sections. And so in Florida now, if you're a high school teacher and my stepdaughter, it feels like she's not learning in your history class, I will pull her out and I'll put her in the online section. And I do it because I've seen the content and it's good. And there are some teachers, you know, who can't engage her. Well, I got another option. And so it's that fluent and easy now in some cases. And in elementary, we have some unique opportunities that I think, you know, secondary is facing the biggest competition right now. We still have a lot of things that we can do and we can craft, but we do have competition. And universal design for learning. FIST to 5. FIST being, I don't know what that means. 5 being, I know a lot about it. Where are you with UDL and understanding what universal design for learning is or means? Just getting a gauge. Be brave. Just tell us. You can admit it. Okay. As expected, it's almost usually, it's usually either we really do or we really kind of don't. You know, and it doesn't matter. We'll talk about it briefly, but it's kind of a theme all through, you know, everything that I speak about and Lisa speaks about. You know, I mentioned I've looked at this whole inclusion thing from a lot of different angles, but what I didn't say is after years of experience with teaching, I really never thought I would have to consider special education as a family member. And in this picture, you know, that's my son Jackson when he was younger and sweeter. Still flashing gang signs, I think, but still younger and sweeter. And his twin sister Zoe in the white and black, and my niece Catherine in the yellow, and my nephew Michael in the blue. And all 4 of those kids were born the exact same year in my family. And Michael had the great misfortune to be born 3 months premature. So unlike his cousins, Michael has severe disabilities. And it's been hard. Inclusion was never about evidence-based best practices. It was always about everybody having access to the same things in society. And I'll tell you, I really had to challenge that when my nephew came along. And I really had to ask myself, and I still ask myself every single day, what do I want for him? And the answer is, I want him to have that smile on his face when he graduates from high school, But the heck of it is, if he's coming to your classroom, it doesn't matter if it's this year, it doesn't matter if it's in middle school, it doesn't matter if it's in high school, he's coming in a wheelchair, he's coming in a diaper, he's coming unable to do that much of what his cousins can do academically. So I asked myself, do I still want him to come? And the truth is I do. Because I want him to hear the great things that you have to say. And do you think for 1 second, if I felt like there was a miracle worker down the hall who could teach Michael to walk, I'll push him down there. But I know there's not, So I have to ask myself, what do I want for him? I want a full range of services that includes an opportunity for him to be around his peers. Because at the end of the day, that's what the real world is. Kids get out of school one day. And do you know what happens for kids like Michael? They're put in a place, they don't have skills to interact with other people, and the kids around them, the people around them don't have the skills to interact with them because they've never even seen somebody with disabilities that severe. So I think about it all the time, and nobody has to tell me how hard it is to include somebody with significant disabilities, because it's hard to include Michael at dinner. It is literally hard to include him in anything at home. So I know. But at the end of the day, that idea of why do we do it, what are we doing, and why do we do it, is something that we have to start thinking of from a different level and a different viewpoint. Never a better day than when I walked into Michael's first grade classroom and his teacher said, "Hey, Becky, let me show you this." And that guy, his doctors told his parents he was going to be a vegetable and never do anything. So the fact that he can even say anything is remarkable, but the fact that anyone has taught him to read anything is a miracle. And I walked in, and his teacher said, watch this, watch this. They taught him to read by first getting pictures of his family members, and then getting them to associate letters with the words. They threw everything about phonics out the window. He can't produce sounds the same as everybody else. And he read from the board, "I love my Aunt Becky." And it was probably, other than my kids being born, it might have been the best day of my life. So, I know it's not easy. Here's what happens. Teachers get kids with challenges, and they feel like failures because they can't do more. And the first thing I'm going to ask you to do today, if you're a gen ed teacher, is to start thinking differently about what success looks like, because it doesn't look the same for every kid. And, I mentioned I have experience at the secondary level, but because of Michael, when he was born, I knew there wasn't an inclusive place for him, so I wrote a charter with United Cerebral Palsy of Central Florida, and we built a school, literally. I found a model in California. I visited their school. I contacted some colleagues out there. I got their charter, and we wrote a charter. So I have a lot of elementary experience now. I wish I didn't. I'll be honest. I wish I didn't. But I am deep in elementary experience now. And after writing our charter and starting our school, what I found out is that without the right planning, without getting on board with a plan, it's hard under the best of conditions. I use this kind of quote: if you don't make a total commitment to whatever you're doing, then you start looking to bail out the first time the boat starts leaking. It's tough enough getting that boat to shore with everybody rowing, let alone when a guy stands up and starts putting his jacket on. And this is what I see happen all the time in education. We try something, it's hard, and we're like, you know what? We can't be that. We have to stay in the boat. Somebody has to stay in the boat. And our mission is to figure out how do we get that boat to shore. And I want to share with you some ideas for doing just that. At Michael's school, they started with inclusion. They used the exact same formula that I mentioned. The school I worked at, they just threw everybody in and said, do it. And it was horrible. They lost all their teachers in the first year. The turnover rate was so high because it was so stressful. 70% of the kids at that school were kids with disabilities. Some of them as severe as Michael's, some severe on the autism spectrum. It was so stressful for the teachers. So I was on sabbatical, and they asked me if I would come in and help reset things, and I said, sure, I will. I said, but we have to collaborate more. We have to change something. We have to reinvigorate this place. And we got back to the core of it, which was a more project-based school. Because when my work isn't compared head-to-head to yours, mine doesn't seem wrong. You know? So we went back to some of the roots of the school. One of the very first things I did, I said, you know what, we have to change the way this school looks and feels. And so tip number one, big picture-wise, think about your own classroom. Think about your own school. How does it look and feel? Because we have to start getting at this from a common sense angle. You know, kind of a common sense angle. I said, you know, why do we keep telling people about inclusion? Why don't we just show them? I immediately started a morning show that we broadcast out of our classroom that parents could log in and watch. And all the kids in the class had jobs and roles, and they rotated who was the host and stuff. And you might get the weather from a girl with autism. But my favorite was when she was doing the joke of the day. That cracked me up because she's so literal and deadpan. That really cracked me up. You know, but there was a role. There was a joke of the day person. There was a weather person. There was a news report. There was a sports person. But you as a parent or you as a community member, because it was an open door policy, if you wanted to know what that school did, you could log in and see because automatically it looked different. So the first thing we did, we made a visible change that people could look at and go, oh, okay, I see, that works. How does that translate to you? The first thing, as you're hearing strategies today, tomorrow, think about what specific things can I take back and how can I show people what they look like? Because it can't just always happen in our classrooms. This is what they look like now. This is a few years after really buying into that. I love this clip. This is what we've morphed into. Video clip. We performed. That group, over 50% of those kids are kids with IEPs. Everybody has completely different ability levels. Every single person has different talents. But we celebrate them all the time. So, as you're watching this, let me just give you big picture ideas. Think about your own school, whether you're using a really inclusive model yet or not. Do a project together. Be a gen ed teacher. Look at a neighbor who teaches special and say, hey, we should really get together and do like a video or a play, something. Start somewhere. Start with the joy. Start with something fun. Why does everything always have to be feel like it's so hard? Start with something organic. And say, okay, we should do a morning news show. We should do this. We should do something. Because you have to start with the culture. These guys have been in school together for a long time now. So they completely, they know each other's skills. They know each other's talents. They know who the best singers are. They know who the best dancers are. They know who the best writers are. They know who the best math students are. And they don't care. Michael goes to that school. Michael's in those shows, just not in the 4th grade. And if you see him around his friends, it makes you cry because they do it fluently and naturally and joyfully. So we have to start thinking, how do we create something that looks different in our setting? Set yourselves up to succeed. You don't have to be a choreographer. Apparently it's turns out well if you are. But we do have to think of like a big picture, show it, celebrate something. How do we do that? How do we make everybody look good? And I'll tell you what, as a gen ed teacher, here's the thing. Sometimes if you're in the early stages, again, just thinking of how do we kick off our inclusive efforts, if your students get to do something fun like a video because they're teaming up with another group, then they're happy to team up with that other group. Oh yeah, what? Oh sure. Well, we love doing that with them because that means we all get to sing and dance. You see? We have to change something. Think of the big picture. Think of the climate. Think of the culture. What can we do that's different? Puppet theater. Something, anything. And I put out those big picture idea kind of things to think about. But let me tell you this. This group, that's them in 4th grade when they were in 3rd grade, with 70% of the kids with IEPs, and Michael was in their class. We held him back this year so he can stay next year. We knew Michael was never going to pass the state test. We knew he was going to get a flat nothing. There's no support that's going to help Michael pass the state test. We went into it knowing Michael would fail. There's another kid in there who is as severe as Michael. We knew that child would fail. And still, that class outperformed our state average in our standardized test scores. There was a 59% proficiency rate in our state. They had 63% proficiency rate, with 2 kids getting nothing because they got the most out of every single kid in that class. So, and they outperformed their district. They're in Orange County, Florida, which is Orlando. So now everybody wants to know, what are they doing? How are they doing it? How do they do that? They've been asked to be like a dissemination school, a model school. I will tell you guys right now, honestly, I'm going to be sharing some specific information from some of their teachers on it. But if any of you ever want a virtual tour, talk to teachers, talk to kids, I'll be sure you have my email. Email me. I will walk you through. I will take you and let you talk to teachers there. To say, hey, I saw this video and you guys did this. Tell me how you got started. I want you to feel like you can do anything that you want, but it starts with you being able to identify what is it that you want to be able to do when it comes to inclusion. I'm going to ask you to take 1 minute with your neighbor, with your colleagues. Where are you? Do you need to jumpstart something? Do you just need to settle something down? What is it that's happening right now? What's happening right now? What do you need right now? What do you need right now when it comes to inclusion in your school? A changing climate? Kickstart? Take 1 What do you need? All right. If you can look this way, please. Look this way, please. Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know all the cute elementary clap and jump to get attention things. I'm not good at that. That's why I couldn't do elementary. I'm not cute enough. All right. So in order to be able to figure out what to do next, we have to know what do we want to happen. And you know what we often lack, I think, as teachers? You know, when things are hitting us or things either aren't going well or we're trying to get something started, we tend to lack specificity. You know, it's like, what is my step one? Specifically, what am I trying to do here? So for me, you know, at that particular school, the problem was everybody didn't understand what the purpose of the school was in the first place. The problem was nobody understood how it could look. And the real problem was that the climate was so toxic that it was getting a bad rap in the community. That's the truth. So the reason that I went big with, let me show joy, is because I needed people to have some glimmer of hope that any of it could be joyful. That was a really specific need that I had. Do you know the other thing that I did at the same time? I did a narrated PowerPoint presentation that I put on the school's website about what is inclusion, so that any parent who wanted to understand what our philosophy was could click on it, at least get an idea. Because people didn't have any idea what it's supposed to look like. There are teachers who have no idea what it's supposed to look like. You know, interestingly, it's actually much easier for teachers to include kids like my nephew. Because Michael, you can look at him and see he has a disability. And the problem is, a lot of times, for those kids with those invisible disabilities, they're the ones that everybody's a little bit more resistant to including. If someone walks in this room right now with a guide dog and sits down, you're not going to turn to your neighbor and go, well, that's not fair. I didn't know we could bring our dogs. Because you would understand that that person needed support. If Michael comes in a wheelchair, you're not going to say, well, get him out of there. He should be able to walk like everybody else. You would never. But for those kids with those mild disabilities, the ones that are just emerging in middle school, in elementary school, we're just identifying them, we're just recognizing them. That's where it gets tricky. Oh, he's just not trying. He's just not working hard. He's just lazy. And the truth is, it's almost never that. At the elementary level, there's a barrier, and it's hard for us to see it, and then it's hard for us to accommodate it, because it's really hard because we got all these other little kids to wrangle. So it doesn't matter what your problem is. What matters is that we have some specific steps to solving it. And I'm going to be offering several different specific strategies, but I always weave it around a sports theme, because it just keeps it logical in my mind. How many of you have ever coached anything? Coaches. If you've coached t-ball or, high school or any level of sports, you know that the hardest thing about coaching is making the kid who's not the star, who's not ever going to be the star, make him still feel just as important, just as validated, just as good on that team. I coached my kids' flag football team, and I have coached high school sports, but I had not coached little kids before. Let me tell you, high school, I wasn't one of those sweet high school coaches. I needed to win, y'all. That's my job. You weren't the best. You didn't start. You might not ever play. I didn't apologize. My goal was to win as a high school coach. But I still needed those players to come out to be on the bench. And I needed to make them feel valuable somehow and to keep them coming out. And there's a real art to it. When I went down, scaled down and coached at the YMCA, I was just standing there with a whistle in my mouth thinking, oh my gosh, why have I ever done this? And I've got kids running everywhere, and I'm like, okay, stop the madness. And I did exactly what you guys do all the time. It's like, okay, blow the whistle, kneel down. When you hear the whistle, kneel down. Go run, and when you hear it, come over here and kneel down. Kneel down. Okay, now spread out. And they run crazy and I go, they come kneel down. Every at the YMCA thought I was like a miracle worker because all I had to do was blow a whistle and I would have all 15 of my players come and kneel down in front of me. Like I'm about to give them some plays to win the Super Bowl. But it was about getting some good structures, and I figured that out, getting good structures. But it was really hard because kids at elementary age, they know who the best is and who's not the best. It's hard to keep my best players from not saying, it's great job at the ball, blah, blah, blah. It was a work of inclusion. And so if you've ever coached, think about what it took for you as a coach to be successful, even if that just means kids feeling good about being there. Coaching matters. Coaching is a big part of our job. And I'm going to tell you, look outside of our field. If you want to know what great coaches do, go Google that. Why do we always look inside our own field for answers to problems? I've never trained in professional coaching. If I need to know something, I Googled it. My son comes in, getting ready for work in the morning. Hey, Mom, know what we need? A salad spinner. Like a salad spinner? What are you talking about? Yeah, seriously, Mom, we need a salad spinner. I'm like, get out of here, Mom. If you order right now, it's only $19.99. You get a free set of I'm like, get out of here, Mom. Seriously, go to www. And why is it my son can free recall every detail about a product for which he has no existing schema? He can tell me everything about a salad spinner. Goes to school that same day. He comes home and I say, Jackson, what'd you learn in school today? What does my son say? Nothing. But if I say, tell me about the salad spinner, I'm glad you asked, Mom. It's only $19.99. You order it right now. You get a free set of knives. He can still tell me 8 hours later about the salad spinner. And I'll tell you why. Because marketing knows how to sell stuff. Why don't we learn about marketing, for heaven Pete's sake? If they can sell Jackson a salad spinner, they can sell him some verbs. Why are we always looking inside of our field for the answers? There are people who do research because it's money. I told some students that once. One of my students was teaching middle school. She went to Costco and bought one of those restaurant scrolls, like the CNN scroll bar. She put all of her vocabulary words in there and let it just run as a scroll, raised achievement like that. She never said, ooh, you got to study this, ooh, look at this. She knew if that's what they do in marketing, hey, she bought it, she put it in her classroom, she left it running, and they learned it. Try the same cheap man's version of that if you have any kind of a smartboard or display. Anytime you have a PowerPoint slide or you have a key concept, put it on the slide. Just leave that looped and running all the time when you're not teaching something else. Loop your material. Repetition matters. Make it progressive. They're still seeing in April your slides from September. You can't help but look at it sometimes. Add a few distinctive elements now and then to keep them. What? Oh, what's blinking over there? Trick them. Look outside of our field. Quit looking only at each other. How do we do this? I don't know. Google it. Look outside of our field. We start with, know who our players are. My extended sports theme. Who are your skill positions? Who do you have around you at your school? How many of you guys are currently co-teaching? Any of you currently co-teaching? Okay. Whether you're currently co-teaching or not, it's time to collaborate. It's time to collaborate. You guys just saw the little, video, the writing video. Who in here, raise your hand if you could create a video. Like you have the skill to create a video. Not if you have the kids to create it. But yeah, I know how to edit and put up a video. You're like, I don't want to raise my hand, Becky, because everybody around me is going to ask me to do theirs. You know what? Know what you can do and know what your colleagues can do. What are your strengths? And know your students. What can they do? What are they good at? I'm going to ask you to take 1 minute with a neighbor and ask yourself, what are your strengths, really, as a teacher? What do you bring? I told you mine are really writing, changing behavior, technology. Those, I would say, are some of my top strengths. What are yours? Take just a moment. What are your strengths? Ask a neighbor. Take a second. Skill positions. All right. So if you didn't get a chance to tell everybody yet, what your strengths are and what you're really good at, be sure you do. Because it starts with knowing what we're good at so that we can know what to ask somebody else to help us do. I collaborate all the time. Lisa and I collaborate all the time. We have, we do everything together. You know why? Because she's much more organized than me. I'm like, Lisa, I'll write the book if you'll mail it. Seriously. She has strengths that I don't. And you know what? She can partner with anybody in the country, but she likes to partner with me. You know why? Because I bring something that other people don't bring. She knows what she's getting when she works with me. She knows that I will drop on she could ask me right now. We were joking at lunch about, she was teasing me that nobody was going to show up at mine because of her great keynote. I'm kidding, but no, I'm not. And so we were joking with the organizers, and we told Jolly, Lisa says, well, don't worry. We can always just open the doors so that Becky can have people to talk to. And we were joking because the truth is we can co-present like that. I can collaborate with Lisa Deeker anytime on anything. Because I know her. I know the players around me. On my own faculty at my university, I know the players. Doesn't mean I have to co-teach with them. It means I have to know who they are so that if I need this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I know who to ask. In your setting, you don't have to have a formal co-teach partnership to collaborate. Know the players around you. Hey, who at my school is really good at drawing? Who at my school is really good at this? I used to trade all the time. I'd be like, I would totally do a web page for you if you would come and do my bulletin boards. I bartered everything. I'm not artistic. I'm horrible. I would trade you anything because I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not that good at. And I want my classroom to be great. And it's the same thing when it comes to supporting kids. There were kids who I felt over the time, they were like, I've tried everything. I feel like I can't reach this kid. What do I do? And the answer is, I look around at my school and see somebody that I think that kid connects with. I don't care if it's the person in the cafeteria that I saw him smile at once, a bus driver, an assistant principal. Who does this kid have a connection with? And I go to that person and I say, you know what, I noticed that you and Danshe seem to have, a connection. And I'm really working on coaching him and I feel like I'm not as successful as I'd like to be. So can you help me with that? And we sit down, we come up with a plan. How can that person pop in and say, hey, I need a volunteer. Who do you have? Oh, I got Danshe. Danshe, go help. I manipulated things to get kids connected. So think differently about who your players are. It's not always the person sitting right next to you. It doesn't have to be a coach. You just have to be somebody at your school with whom you think you can collaborate. So know your own strengths, but know the people around you. I'm going to ask you, in your mind, get one person in your mind who you think, yeah, when I go back, I'm going to totally figure out a way. I'm going to ask this person, let's collaborate on something. Just in your mind. Jot it down somewhere so you don't forget. I'm going to ask John. I'm going to ask the PE coach. I'm going to ask so-and-so. I collaborate with the PE coaches all the time. I very specifically would say, can you do this, because I'm working on this. I put up sign-up sheets in our faculty lounge of kids, not just kids with IEPs, but any kid who I felt like needed extra something. I put a sign-up sheet and say, hey, who wants to volunteer to be that extra someone for any of these guys? And it was almost just like a, secret buddy at school. But I would just say, can you make sure that 2 times a day you give this student some kind of positive reinforcement just in case I don't? And it had to be that planned, And it also helped my colleagues to realize, oh yeah, some kids need a little extra something. So, it was simple and easy. I wasn't asking to do everything, just something. So knowing what everybody does well. The other things, the game plan, the plays, the clock. What does winning mean? It all matters. But knowing who your players are, knowing what everybody around you is good at is the first place to start. You know what we tend to do? We tend to focus on what everybody's not good at. I don't want to work with her. She's such a witch. Instead of, you know what? I will work with her because she's really organized and structured. And if I focus on what's good about her, now I have a whole different kind of partnership than if I'm going into, okay, I'll try, but she's really nasty. Focus on, hey, here's what she does well. Let's start with that. Start with that. Figure it out. Who are your players? What are their strengths? I used to find that I was always asked, after I started co-teaching, it became, hey, Becky, why don't you go co-teach with Bill next semester? And I'm like, what? Yeah, he needs a little picker-upper. He's a little flat. I'm like, my job isn't to go like perk people up. Does everybody realize that? Like that can't be my sole position here. And they were like totally made me go, the better I got at co-teaching, the more aversive the situation they would put me in, which really wasn't fair. So I'm not suggesting we do that, but I am saying celebrate the people around you and know what their strengths are. Ask your colleagues this. Go back and start asking, hey, what are you an expert? What are you really good at? What do you know how to do really well? I'm putting together my dream team. What are you good at? What do you love to do? Because that's what matters too. What do you love to do? The best co-teachers I ever saw were some 5th grade teachers who had been in a class I was teaching on collaboration. And we were talking about this idea of getting back to your expertise and what you love to do and what you're really good at. And I said, build your partnerships around that. Build it around what you love. Because then it's a more joyful experience to co-teach. So they really took me at my word, and they went back to their school, and they didn't even have co-teaching at their school. They went and asked their principal, hey, can we co-teach? It sounds like fun. Nobody ever says that. I wish I had gotten that on camera. Yeah, so they go back to their school that year and say, can we co-teach? Well, they call me in October and say, hey, Dr. Hines, you really should come and watch us co-teach. We're having so much fun. And again, I never get that call either. So I said, well, I got to go see this. I drive out to this little rural school, a lot of migrant families, really low-income school. And I walk in, and I wasn't even sure what I was walking into, because at the front of the room was one of the teachers in a little pencil skirt, writing on the board, lecturing in what sounded like, the old cartoon Peanuts, wah, wah, wah. I mean, I was bored. I didn't know how these 5th graders were hanging in there. And every single kid in that class, every single kid was taking notes on what she was saying. And it was notable to me, because I'll tell you, I observe a lot of classrooms, and the first thing I do is count how many kids are on task. It's the first thing I look at. How many kids appear to be on task right this minute? And then about 5 minutes later, I count again. 5 minutes later, I count again. And I can tell you your percentage of on-task time. 100%. And I almost never see that on a cold walk-in. And about 10 minutes in, her co-teacher, who was the opposite of her in every way, Tim, starts walking up to the front. He has an acoustic guitar strapped on his back. He has on flip-flops. He has a long ponytail. Tim starts walking up to the front of the room and goes, hang on a second, Miss Smith, hang on a second. I think I got to sing that out for him. And he whips his guitar around, and he starts going, now she just said, you got to add your numerators. And on the spot, he made up a review song about what she just taught. It was stunning. And after he sang a quick verse, he says, all right, give me one word you heard. Give me one word you heard. Give me one word you heard. And he pointed to kids. They looked at their notes. They told him one word. And he was such a good improvisational singer. He could take those words they said and build a second verse on the spot. Ah, now I see. We got a lot of... I was floored. And, when his set was over, he walks back. And she comes back up, and she starts writing notes again. And they pick up their pencils, and they got to it. And it was amazing. And I went back to him while he was getting some water, freshening up. And I said, Tim, how long do you guys do this? He said, well, we do this in some of our more lecture-y parts. We like to break it up. You told us to go with what we love. I love to sing. We decided this would be a good partnership. He said, so I like to do a lot of review songs and stuff. He said, other times during the day, we have stations, and he's pointing things out. And in the back of the room, I saw this karaoke mic and a spotlight. And I'm like, what is that? He goes, oh, well, at the end of the day, we have open mic. He said, anybody who wants to can come back and perform their own original review song or stand-up comedy if it's related to today's content. And here's the great thing about it. You weren't required to do it. You could do that, or you could go to a different station. But some kids wanted to do it. And he, honestly, Tim McCarty that year won Teacher of the Year in that district. Just walking around with an acoustic guitar, singing, doing what he loves. And the only shame of it is that his co-teacher deserved, it should have been a shared award, because without her, he's just a crazy man singing. You know? And she's a very good content teacher. And we try to contort ourselves into both. You know? Be great at something. That's my message. Be great at something. Celebrate what you do well. Find people to help you with the things you don't. And that's true of the inclusive classroom. It's true of today's classroom, because so much is going on in there. So when I say, ask yourself what you're an expert, start asking your colleagues, start asking your neighbors, start asking people in your school, hey, what do you love? Hey, guidance counselor, hey, what do you really love? What are you really good at? What do you really love to do? You know what? Oh, you love drama? That would be awesome. You want to do a little drama club in my classroom on Thursdays at this time? If you're not currently inclusive, ask your special ed teachers, hey, what do you love to do? Let's do a little partnership. Let's do a little production. Let's do a little something. Because you don't have to be the one who does it all. You just have to be the one willing to do something different and to add this kind of layer. Give back to our expertise, because knowing who we are on the team really matters. I'll give you an example from my little Bales school. This young lady, you might or might not have seen her in the video, but she was in the class, the 4th grade class that I was showing, that was doing the video. Well, this is a young lady. Of course, I have her parents' permission to use this clip. She's a young lady on the autism spectrum disorder. She's in our inclusive school. I was working with teachers on doing computer-based assessments, and trying to get away with only a few computers. How can we run everybody through some different computer-based activities? And it's hard, because we didn't have a computer for every kid. So I was trying to come up with a good structure and trying to get it all planned, trying to figure out how to make it work. So me and the PE coach at this particular school, because she was off and I needed help, and she's good with technology, I said, hey, come help me. So she did. We walk into the classroom and we say, hey, we need 2 people, 2 students to come with us to work on this computer-based thing real quick. The kid, I look around, this young lady is standing in the middle of the room screaming at the top of her lungs. I had no idea why, but that's just what she was doing when I walked in. So of course, what do you think? The teacher says, okay, great. Take her and thank you. Like, oh, okay. So she's standing in the front, in the middle of the room screaming. But because this was not completely out of the ordinary in our room, the teachers were just doing station teaching, planned ignoring. She was safe. She's standing there screaming solo, And so, we're like, okay, great. Let's, step outside with me. And she wouldn't. She would not stop screaming. So the coach, who had an iPod Touch in her pocket, whips it out and starts filming her screaming. And almost immediately, she stops and says, wait, you can't film me now. I'm screaming. And the coach is like, I know. I just want to be sure you know what that looks like. And so she played it back for her. And she's like, oh, I'll come with you. I'll come with you. Let me try that again. She walked out of the room. The coach wasn't an expert in autism. The coach was an expert in thinking of something to try. There's no formula. She's an expert with technology. She had something in her pocket. She had an idea, and she films the kid. You can read articles about video modeling, and oh, great. Start with something, So coach made a quick decision, films her, shows her, plays it back, and the girl steps outside. So we happen to step into, one of the other things when I decided to go big with this place, I painted a closet with green in the background. It's a big closet. We use it as our production studio. So we do a lot of green screen. And we happened to step in there to do our computer stuff. So when the young lady said, I want to do it again, coach said, okay, you can do it again. And this is her the second time. Let's see if back there.
Very good. And listen to you. I will be good for her. However, I'll be good for the rest of the day.
So she walks out. She essentially writes her own little social story on the spot. And so I'm standing there and I see that Coach has accidentally filmed it in front of the green screen, and this is where the expertise comes in, because I'm like, oh, you know what? We could totally make that a video social story for her. So then I walk back into her classroom, I snap a few pictures, and we just use the exact same footage, but now with some audio on it. I say that as, see, I told you I'm an expert with technology.
I will do my computer work. I will be very good and listen to you. I will be good for whoever and I'll be good for the rest of the day.
So we took footage at lunch, we took footage at PE, we took footage walking in the hall, we burned them all as little separate videos, so anytime Kaylee was getting ready to go somewhere, she loved to click on it and watch herself and remind herself how she was going to act in whatever setting. It was a simple support. It's still a simple support. It just takes expert thinking. And you'll never think of it all by yourself. I didn't think, oh, you know what, this kid would benefit from some video social stories. It just happened. That's what we have to create, opportunities for it to happen. I'm going to ask you to think for just a moment of a challenging student right now in your elementary setting. One student. Yes, I said only one. Yes. Think of one student and jot down a name somewhere, not the last name, just jot down a name. Think of one student. You're welcome to share, thought with a colleague about who you're thinking about, especially if you're teaming. I want you to consider this, guys. As you're thinking about all of it, I really want you to consider this. Honestly, the key to inclusion, specificity, start with one student. Start with someone specific for whom you're trying to change something that's going to support one student, because those things that you use to support one student will blossom into things you can use to support numerous other students with and without disabilities. So let's think for a moment about one student. If I could go back and at least just start thinking about this one student, who's going to be on your team? Who are you going to go to and say, hey, I've got this one guy, and I'm really trying to raise his achievement. And I feel like I haven't, been as successful, and we're halfway through the school year. I got this one guy. I got this one girl. I don't mean to always point out guys. I told you I taught kids with SED, and I had all boys. I got this one kid. Start with one kid. Try something concerted. Build a team around one kid, and think of it differently than you have in the past. I'll tell you, the young lady that I just featured, she scored a perfect score on the math portion of our state assessment. And if she had been at any other school, she would not have been taking that assessment. And no one knew she's practically a math genius, because no one would have ever put her in that position. And we didn't know she was a math genius because, yes, her teachers completely individualized for her, but they don't give those kind of tests all the time. Do you know that there's a correlation between how many times you mention the state test and how your kids perform? And it's a negative correlation. The more you talk about the test, the lower your kids perform. Just so you know. Just so you know. Just so you know. Well, let me tell you about my one kid. See if you can find any elements of this guy in any kids that you've had. I realized, again, that the inclusion piece, the hard part was people not understanding those kids with the invisible disabilities. So I was, as a teacher, I was writing I wrote a mini grant because I realized teachers kind of needed to hear kids' stories from the inside out. So I took a bunch of 6th graders, and I paid them as writers, literally paid them. And I had them come on Saturdays to the university and write their own case studies and stories. And I used their stuff to train teachers. And this kid is one who was featured in my group. And he was the only kid in my group who said, you know, I don't really like to type. Can I just tell you my story? I said, sure, you can just tell me your story. So he dictated to me his life story. I asked him, he had dual labels, emotionally handicapped and learning disabled. And in Florida, it's EH. You guys ED here? Yeah. Yes, you are. But I'm bummed. In Florida, it's the same label, emotionally handicapped. So I asked him, I said, Coley, how you get the label EH? And, oh, well, me and all my friends, we went to EH from ECIA, and that's called Chapter 1. That's how you get in, I guess. Once you get out of ECIA, you just go into EH. In other words, if you live in the project in Tampa, you're going to be labeled EH. That was his take on it. He wasn't wrong. Tons of overrepresentation in that particular category. I said, well, what does it stand for? He said, well, when they say EH stand for emotionally handicapped, I don't get that. EH to me stands for educational help. You get help on your education. If it stands for emotionally handicapped, we'd all be sitting up in emotionally handicapped classes right now. And I thought, you know, that is a really fast, funny response from a kid who did not know that question was coming. It was so smart. And I asked him then, the thing that I ask all kids labeled emotionally disturbed, I said, what's the best thing that's ever happened to you? And you know why I ask that? Because for kids who are a problem for you or who are unhappy, it's almost always a reflection of their unhappiness. And in fact, of the 5 characteristics of emotional disturbance, pervasive mood of unhappiness or depression is one of the defining characteristics. And yet I almost never see an IEP goal that says, I'm going to help this kid learn to feel happiness. And it's the most common characteristic of those kids. So their behavior or their feelings might manifest themselves as something else really annoying to you, but I promise you, underneath it, somebody's really unhappy. And so for kids who are truly emotionally disturbed, when I ask them that, they never answer me. I've never gotten a clear answer to what makes you happy. They couldn't even define it for me. But when I asked this guy, what makes you happy? He said, oh gosh, can I tell you 2 things? I said, sure. He said, well, let me tell you 2 best days of my life. He said, when my little cousin was born and when my little sister was born. He said, both times everything just kept coming up happy. And I thought, well, that doesn't really scream disturbance, you know? So I found him to be a really interesting guy. I used his stuff for a long time. I moved away and started teaching at Southeast Missouri State in Cape Girardeau. And I was teaching gen ed teachers. And I called my friend. I said, Lynn, do you still have Coley in school? And she said, I do. I said, can you ask him to write a follow-up for me about inclusion? Because I'm trying to teach people about inclusion. She said, sure. So this is what Coley wrote to me as an 8th grader. And he mailed it in the mail because it was before everybody emailed everything. He said, living in a situation such as mine, appearance is very important. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. In elementary, I did everything I could to stay in the in crowd. School was the worst because I was in SLD and EH classes. And the teacher would come to the door and say, Coley for EH or Coley for SLD. And so I would show out and get in trouble so everyone would not laugh at me. You have kids in your class right now, I'm sure, who do that. Whether you know that's why. Here's the second page of his letter. And this one I did not fix the spelling. Sometimes I would go home and cry myself to sleep. I'd be so embarrassed, and the kids would call me emotionally handicapped and you slow learning disability dog. And I would fight them and get in trouble. When I got to Middleton, which was our middle school, I was so afraid to be in all special classes. On the first day the classes were going, my first class was EH, and I went and stayed as long as everybody else. And he mentions the gen ed teacher's name. I whited that out. So I got home and I told my mother about it, and she was so happy for me. I like doing it this way because I'm with my friends. Middleton is a unique environment. SLD and EH are the same class. My peers respect me, and I love that. So if this makes any difference, I suggest that more people in schools decide to do the same. And I got to tell you guys, I read dissertations all the time. That is a great writing sample. That kid has better transition than most of my doctoral students. He tells a story. He tells it fluently. He has a beginning and an end. He has great writer's voice. He does almost everything else, you know, as a writer, fantastically. What is he not so great at? He's not really that good at spelling. His, you know, punctuation, not much to write home about either. Yeah. His grammar, depends what you're looking at. written or verbal. He has great sentence structure. He makes great word choices. And if you've never looked at a writing sample of someone with a learning disability, cement that in your mind because that's exactly what it looks like. That is a learning disability. And here's the thing. This guy, the reason that he's always been given things like extended time or reduced amount is because it takes so long to put that many words on paper. When you're trying to phonetically sound out every syllable, you have no idea how long that would take. You have no idea how hard that would be. And so what do you think during elementary school? What do you think he does? He gives up. You know when he gives up? Do you know when he gave up? He gave up about the first time he had to start taking spelling tests. You know? Because he's working just as hard. He knows he's smart. He's working just as hard as the next guy. He takes his tests and he gets it back and he's like, what do you mean I got one right? I studied harder than he did and he got 9 of them right. I'll just try harder next week. And he tries harder the next week, and what happens? He obviously has no free recall of even the most basic spelling words, y'all. And that's after an entire elementary school career of being pulled out and given special services by lots of different people. Lots of people tried to teach him to spell. At what point do you say, he's a great writer, not a great speller, and you start teaching him other ways to represent his thoughts? At what point do we do that? And that's kind of the hard part about inclusion, because you guys are teaching different grade levels. You're like, I can't give up that fight yet because I got him 2nd grade and I got to get him ready. You do. I'm not saying don't teach spelling. I'm saying let's reframe how we think about spelling. I'm saying let's not fight with each other about how much we support spelling. And let's not assume that putting him in a special place to learn spelling is going to yield the kind of results that are going to make him successful long term. That is after an entire elementary school career. Because the problem isn't that he's not trying. The problem is that he has a visual perceptual difference that makes it almost impossible for him to free recall the most basic spelling conventions. And the other part, when it comes to inclusion, the hard part is, well, how do we grade that? So we're teaching this guy, and we're in a 4th grade classroom. We're getting him ready for our state test. How do we grade that? That's hard. It's hard. In Florida, if he had written that, he would have passed, actually. Because spelling isn't writing. I asked him as a boy, I said, Coley, what do you want to be when you grow up? He said, I want to be a teacher or a journalist. And I almost cried because I thought, I don't know how he's going to get there, because I don't know if people will see what a great writer he is. You know why? Because he wouldn't write. That was the longest thing he ever wrote, and he didn't write it for a grade, he wrote it for me. So how are you going to get them to write? He gave up. It's not uncommon for people to give up. I do this little project with my undergraduates all the time. They come into my class, they're teacher prep, they're gen ed, elementary ed majors. And I teach the one class on kids with disabilities in the elementary classroom. Well, see, there's a real correlation between why I'm here in that class. So I teach them that class, and they come in and I say, listen, guys, your grade is going to be based on 3 things in here. There's going to be 33% of it's based on a final exam and midterm. 33% is going to be based on a practicum experience. And 33% is going to be based on something that I call teachers as learners, because to be a great teacher, you have to be a good learner. They're like, okay, sure. I said, so I'm going to ask you to learn something new this semester. And I just picked something random that I wasn't sure how good anybody would be at any of it. So I have picked bowling. And they're like, okay. I said, so you have all semester long to learn more about bowling and to be a more proficient bowler. They're like, okay, great. It sounds like so much fun. I said, okay, now all I want you to do this weekend is go out and go bowling and bring back your score sheet. It's your only homework. Yay, we love this class. They all go out, they go bowling. They come in the next week, they have their score sheets that they've had printed off. They sit down, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. You got a 149? Oh my gosh, I got a 62. Oh boy. Laugh, 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 fun, fun, fun. Everybody, nobody cares what anybody got in bowling until I say, okay, now I'm going to put the scoring rubric up. And by the end of the semester, if you're averaging a 160 or higher, you'll get an A on this assignment. By the end of the semester, if you're averaging a 150 to 159, you'll get a B. A 140 to 149, you'll get a C. 130, 139, you'll get a D. And if by the end of the semester, an entire semester of teaching yourself to bowl, if you're not a good enough teacher to teach yourself to average better than 130 on this, then you're going to fail this particular part of the course. But it's fine, because as long as you do perfectly on the final exam and on your practicum, you can still get a C in the class. What do you think these people say? What are the first 3 words out of their mouth? That's not fair. What do you mean? She's already a good bowler and I'm not. And you know what I say? Well, work harder. Get yourself a bowling tutor. Here's some websites. Go read about it. Watch some videos. Come on. You got 3 months. Kick it up. In the first week, they believe me. And they go out and they go to the bowling alley and they ask, okay, can you show me how to bowl? And the guy's like, yeah, I'll do this. Okay. And they come back and here's what week 2, every semester, week 2 looks like this. What'd you get? She's like, I got a 155. Shut up. And she's like, what'd you get? Never mind. I don't want to. Shut up. I got 75. And don't try to say, oh, good, that's better than last week. Shut up. And by the 3rd week, these same people come in and go, oh my God, this class is so stupid. I hate this class. I hate that teacher. I want my money back. This is not fair. This is ridiculous. I have in 3 weeks taught my students to hate something they had no pre-existing feeling about one way or the other. I have taught everybody who is not a good bowler to hate bowling in 3 weeks. And luckily for them, I say, okay, I just want you guys to know that's how it feels. If you're the kid who's not good at math, or you're the kid who's not good at reading, or you're the kid who's not good at spelling, that's exactly how it feels. Because I want you to start from there and here. And if you think it's not fair for me to grade like this, then you tell me what is fair, and that's how you better grade when you get out of here. You tell me how you're going to make people feel better. You tell me what you're going to do, and our whole semester needs to be about figuring out how do we do that. Because you've got kids like this in your classroom. This guy gave up. He gave up really early. When I say, you know, yeah, he wanted to be a teacher or a journalist, I really worried that he was not going to get there. I had good reason to worry, you know, because statistically he was 17 times more likely to be incarcerated as an adult than his peers. Statistically. And I moved away. You know, I was teaching at a university. I tried to get him the one support that he needed. The one thing, which was voice-to-text software. And I could not get anybody to go for that. That's not fair. And this was several years ago now, and the technology wasn't as easy to use. Well, that's not fair. Well, why should he be able to just dictate it and write it up for him? I'm like, what do you mean it's not fair? So, you know, it's that idea of how do we start dispelling that? Start watching your colleagues. I'll tell you what, you know my principles, right? Watch this next time you go to a required technology training. Because here's how it looks. The people who are good with technology walk in with their own devices. They're going to sit near the outlets. They got 4 devices they got to plug in. Oh, I wonder if I can get this up on this and this and this. And then you got the middle of the road people. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll go listen. And then you've got the people who feel like they're not great with it, who walk in and go, this is ridiculous. I don't know why we have to come to this. This is so stupid. And I guarantee you it is not the people who are great with technology who are saying that. It doesn't feel great to fail or to feel like a failure. For this guy, I worried about what would happen. And after several years, I ended up moving back to Florida. And early on when I got back, I called my friend at our old middle school, and I said, Lynn, I know he's a grown man now, but do you know where Coley is now? Because I just wanted to know. Because I saw so much potential in him, and I was so worried about him. And she said, yeah, actually, somebody just told me they saw him. And I was like, oh gosh, tell me he's not in jail. She said, no, he's not in jail. She said, come to Tampa. I live in Orlando. She said, come to Tampa and let's go try to find him. So I really went just armed with a video camera to go look for this guy, just based on like a rumor, or like I think I'm on 2020 or something. So neither one of us had seen him since he was a boy. We walk into the last place he was cited, and I'm only going to share literally 1 minute of this, but this is Coley as a grown man, and this is him. He had not seen us since he was a kid. He did not know we were coming, and it's really hard to understand because he has a thicker accent than I do.
I've been working at Hines for almost 3 years. Been a manager. I haven't time to tell you how long I've been a manager. I can't remember, but I'm enjoying it. The little what was it called? You call it, you put your plan or whatever you're doing, you draw a little spider web. You know what I'm talking about? I still use that.
Graphic organizer? Graphic organizer.
I still use that. And I'll let y'all know I got the 10% raise thanks to you with the remember the slide thing you taught me in class? I did a profit organizer using the slide techniques. I learned that.
PowerPoint, like
like you show the slides and the graphs and all that. I did that, and I got a raise too. Sure, got a raise. You thank you.
In literally 1 minute, that grown man could look at his former teacher and name 2 specific strategies that she used when he was in school that helped him as a grown man get a raise. And that has to be what we're teaching for. That has got to be the end game for us. It has to be that we start thinking about what it all means. The turnaround for that guy was when he was placed in a setting in which he did not feel humiliated anymore. And we said to him, you know what, babe, you're not the best writer in terms of spelling, but you're one of the best writers at this school in everything else. So let's think about how we translate that into success for you. And we quit focusing on the spelling, and we started focusing on the real writing. And we coached him up on that. You know what? He can stand up and give a great verbal presentation. You know why? We taught him to do it. You know what? He can create a great PowerPoint presentation. You know why? He will limit the number of words. He will use good visuals, and he's a very articulate and smart guy. But somebody had to find the tools and craft them and help him to understand how to maximize what he does best, not what he does worst. And I'll tell you, this guy, we asked him in the interview, we said, I asked him, I said, Coley, what's the most important thing you learned in school? And he said, without hesitating, he said, oh, algebra. And we almost choked. I thought Lynn Fell was going to do a spit take with her sweet teeth. What? Algebra? He said, Coley, you failed algebra. Did you take algebra in high school? He said, no, I didn't take algebra in high school. He said, I dropped out of high school. Like he did. So yeah, I wanted to keep going. They started pulling me out again. High school wasn't as inclusive as our middle school was. They pulled him out. He said, I wanted to keep going there. He said, the minute I could, I dropped out. He said, I took algebra in middle school. Remember y'all made us all take 8th grade algebra? We're like, yeah. And Lynn said, yeah, but you failed it. He looked at her. He said, just because I didn't turn in my work didn't mean I wasn't learning. Looked at her like she was crazy. What are you talking about? You care about your grade? You care about what I learned? He was given equal access to the algebra content, even though he didn't earn it. He was given it. I would never know that he learned it if I had not stumbled upon him as a man who could tell me that. When we asked him what was the worst thing about high school, he said, oh, shoot. He said, you know, people didn't understand how it felt. People coming and pulling me. He said, people didn't understand how that felt. He just kept saying that over and over. I said, I don't know if you have any kids yet. I said, but if you do, will you let them do that to your kid? He said, no, I don't believe I will. He said, I don't think that worked for me. He said, it just made me want to fight. And then my funniest clip of him, I said, well, Coley, I said, Miss Bell said you used to crawl. This is his behavior. Imagine how much you would love to include this guy when he came to us in 6th grade. On his IEP, it said, Coley will reduce his barking and crawling to only 30% of your class time. I'm not talking about little subtle behaviors by that man, all right? You try, that's a hard sell. We're my special ed friends. Y'all know you go to a gen ed teacher, it's like, great news. He's going to, I think I got a plan to get him to reduce it to only 30% of our class time. That's a tough sell. And I said, Miss Bell, I read him his IEP goal. I said, Miss Bell said he used to crawl on the floor and bark like a dog. And he laughed. He said, oh my God. He said, did I do that? I bet that's why they thought I had some kind of emotional handicap. But we said, yes. There was a direct correlation between the barking, the crawling, and the label. And he said, he looked at us and he said, let me tell y'all something. When you crawl on the floor barking like a dog, that teacher ain't going to ask you no math problem. Okay? She's going to think, he's got bigger problems than that. I'm just leaving him alone. And the truth is, he was right. People quit asking him. People quit expecting things. People stopped doing that in elementary school. Because he gave up, because he didn't want to feel stupid. He would rather look lazy than stupid. He would rather look bad than stupid. And he was afraid that people couldn't understand how smart he was. So he made other choices. That's what we all have to stop. You're at the exact position to end that cycle. If we can get this guy feeling better as he goes into secondary, he's going to have a whole different outcome. But I will tell you the end of the story for him. I was disappointed when I heard he dropped out, but he had the goal-setting skills. He had the confidence to walk himself up to the Adult Learning Center, to take the GED review course, to pass the GED review course and the GED. And when I filmed that, Wendy's was paying for him to get a business degree. Because you don't have to be a great speller to be a great businessman. But if you don't know what you're good at, you never get there. All right, if you will look this way, please. Thank you. I know, it's hard. I know. You've got cake, you've got devices. No, it's chopped liver. As we extend our thinking, you know, I realize that now the hard part is going from those general things and ideas to something more specific. You know, how do we get there? How do we do that? And I'm actually very sensitive to this idea of the test taking. You know, okay, well that's great, give them an oral assessment, but they don't get to do an oral assessment on the state test. You know, I realize that. But here's the thing. We have to first start with don't let them give up. You really do. And for the kid who can't spell, like let's look at Coley for a second. If I spend all my time as a teacher only trying to get him to spell using, you know, whatever format I have, he's not going to develop in all of his other writing skills the way that I want him to. And he might have a chance at proficiency if I can get the best out of all of his other skills. And even if, let's say worst case scenario, he doesn't pass that part, if I can get him to pass the math part. You see, so at some point, I'm not saying that we write off any area or content for the kids, but we have to reframe what we think of as success. And we have to start looking at, you know, what are we teaching? What do we want them to learn? Oral assessments. And if some of you, you know, if you're co-teaching, I hope you come back tomorrow and we'll talk about some really specific co-teach structures and things that we can do. An oral assessment has to be that we take it from, now he said it verbally, now we say, write down 2 words. Write down 2 words for me, showing me that. Put 2 of those words on paper for me. Start with 2 words. And then the next week you say, you know what? You really know your stuff. Let's see if you can get me a whole sentence about that. It's basic scaffolding. Sure, by the end of the year, I want him to be able to answer something in a complete sentence, but I don't expect him to be able to do it in January if he's doing nothing yet. And I'm going back to my classroom, next week, and I've got a kid, maybe the student you were thinking of in your mind, the one kid who you need to do something with. If he's not producing anything in writing on paper yet, don't expect him to produce it all in writing. Expect him to be able to tell you a story and to write down his 3 characters' names on a piece of paper. It's a change in how we think about it. So I'm not saying that we throw out the standards by any stretch, but I'm saying that we have to be a little more sophisticated in how we do it. Coley mentioned graphic organizers. Absolutely. It was a very important part of our scaffold. Everything we did, it was, if you're ready to free write, free write. If you want to start with an organizer, let me see that. But we didn't say everybody start, because I had kids who actually were very good writers who wanted to free write. And if I make them do the graphic organizer, now I'm slowing them down. And that's the truth too. So it's about thinking a little differently and at least starting to address it. If he can't tell you the answer, he's sure not going to be able to write the answer unless he literally has a verbal communication issue. So we have to start thinking about how do we, whatever our goal is, whatever it is that you want to be able to do, how do we get there from here? And I've mentioned that it's about surrounding ourselves. It's also about finding the right tools. I mentioned, for Coley, voice recognition. I don't know how many of you have seen the Dragon Dictation. If you've never tried it, make it a goal of yours, and I don't care if you download it right now. If it's available, and I know it's available on all of the iPhone, iPad, iPod devices. Is it available for Androids now? It may not be, and I'll tell you why. Because this exact software, it's the same. It's powered by the same technology that runs Surrey and everything else, and it's been around for a long time. It is the best adapted voice recognition. So tap to and dictate. Living in a situation such as mine, appearance is very important. I had to walk the walk and talk the talk. I can literally just say it and it types it out for me. I can email it to you with a click of my thumb. It's available for anybody who wants to use it, and some kids need it. And if you're trying to teach a kid to write, you've got to start getting him to produce more words. And if you need to get him to produce more words, let him dictate some stuff and see how many words come up. Ask him to count those. Then hide it and say, see if you can write down 4 of those on your own. Let me see what you got. Use it as a tool. If you want to see if you're increasing word production, have them record themselves. Then have them do it the next week. Do something else. Are they doing bigger, better? Then get them to take this from here to whatever format they're going to be assessed with later on. But if you can't get them to do it in this way, how are you ever going to get them to do it on the test? So it's about finding a support, finding a tool, lining it up, giving it a try. It's funny because, and in this case, because it's so sophisticated now, I don't have a great speaking voice, she said ironically. But my phone now knows my voice well enough that I can, situate. Everything is, pretty much correct because the technology is so strong now. And if you don't know this, the state tests are going to become smarter and smarter and smarter in terms of the technology used for them. And you better believe, click of a button now, you can dictate responses. And they are moving in that direction. So it is increasingly about what somebody authentically knows versus what he or she can authentically spell. So don't beat yourself up over using tools. Be the kind of teacher who understands my goal is to scaffold him or her away from this tool to a degree. But if you give a student this tool, you're helping them not just now while they're in elementary, you're helping them in middle school, you're helping them in high school, and you're helping them in real life. Because if I have to write a letter to apply for a job and I'm not a good speller, I'm dictating it. I have a doctoral student who graduated. She got awards for her dissertation, she dictated the whole thing because she has a learning disability. It would have taken her so long to spell the words that it would have interfered with her ability to explain her research. She dictated almost the whole thing. It's not cheating. So, yeah, there's definitely a piece of it that we have to start thinking differently about. The other great thing about it will play it back. I can put my thumb on it and have it read it back to me. If you're trying to teach a kid to write, let him hear it back. Did it say what you thought it said? You have them type it and read it back. Have them type it on a keyboard and read it back. Did it say what you thought it said? Let's look at the words let's look at our challenge words. Are there any words on there that are spelled differently than you predicted when you said it? Be creative. Use your tools. Look at your neighbor. Who knows how to use this? Just ask a neighbor. Who knows how to use it? Who has it already? Dragon dictation. You have it? All right. All right. I am actually, believe it or not, because I know you think I wasn't gonna, I'm actually going to refer to the handouts that you have. You may have concluded by now that I am not somebody who reads PowerPoint slides to you or reads the handouts to you. I actually presumed that you were all readers. But I will offer some explanation and tell you that my menu, first of all, take a look at the menu. As we start thinking about inclusion, one of the biggest problems is always the plan. How do we plan? How do we get, so much, it's so much, it's so much. And tomorrow, when I'm talking about co-teaching, I'll be using this menu quite a bit, but I wanted to point out for you today what it actually means and why I developed it in the first place. It's overwhelming. You don't have to tell me. Your job is overwhelming. You have a lot to do. I'm always looking for what is the fastest, easiest way to communicate, what I need, what I can do. Special ed teachers, that menu is essentially a tool that I use that idea and that approach when I was collaborating with other people. I put together a menu of services I could offer. Hey, guess what? Here's what I can bring. Here's what I can do. Here, please make a selection, please. Pick what you want. Here's the flavor of the day. Because clarity matters. And if we don't know what everybody's good at and what somebody could bring, it's hard. It's a big open-ended, what are we supposed to do? So as you're thinking about the planning piece, think of shortcuts. How can you make it easy for yourself? Whether you're a speech language person, whether you're a special educator, whether you're a foreign language ESOL teacher, second language learners, guidance counselor, any of us who are in this game together, make menus. Hey, here's what I have. So that if I'm in here and I'm a gen ed teacher, and I already have all of this going on, I don't have to figure out how to integrate you. You gave me a menu. I made a choice. And I mentioned earlier that idea of thinking outside of our field. Yeah, I intentionally use a menu approach. You know why? It's what we do in marketing. It's a way of organizing information that's very easy. It implies there's a decision to be made. There's an implied decision. Make a choice and let's move ahead. It's not everybody sitting around waiting, And if I go somewhere to order something and I look at the menu and I don't see anything I like, I say, well, do you have any specials today? Good. You know what? If somebody gives you a menu and you don't like what's on it, say, hey, you got anything else? I don't need any of these things just now. What else can we bring? What else can we add? But we have to start somewhere. And any of you are welcome to photocopy my menu, use it, as it is. But probably better if you customize your own, because my tools that I can bring may not be the same as yours. On the front page, the service delivery, the tools, the targeted skills, the assessments, those are the kind of things that you start with. That's the inclusion piece in general. I literally list for people, hey, here's the tools that I'm really good at. I'll bring any of these tools into your classroom anytime. People are glad I'm coming. I'm going to do something technology-based. They're like, yay, I don't have time to figure out how to do that. Good, I'll do it. I'll bring it. Got it. So the tool that I just mentioned, the Dragon Dictation, is an example. If I am in the business of supporting kids, I will commit to, I'll download that. Let me look at it. Let me see if I have some ways I could recommend teachers use it. And then I put it on my menu. And I say, well, here's a list of tools I can bring to support this kid. And the great thing about it is I don't have to just use it with one kid. I will use it with anyone in here, you know, who could use the support or just wants to use it. You see, so we have to start making the planning piece easier because it tends to be an obstacle when we're trying to include kids. Start with a menu. Start with a menu. Take a look at mine, just that front page for a second, and ask yourself, what would be on my menu? Whether you're gen ed, special ed, what assessments do you normally use? You know, what kind of assessments are you currently using? What kind of targeted skills, mini lessons are you doing on the very specific skills? What kind of little technology pieces are you weaving in? What tools are you using? Take a look at my menu for a second and see if there's something you could add to yours. Because this is based entirely on what the needs were when I was working with other people. All right. If you take a look up at the front of the screen, or the front of the room, not the front of the screen, or that too. Why would you look behind it? All right. This is another way of planning that I often used. My very most basic shortcut. I would sit down and ask my colleague, list all the instructional tasks in your classroom that you do every day. From prepping activities for this, list them all. From doing the calendar stuff to doing this, list all the instructional things you do. List all of the managerial things that you do. That's what I would ask them to do. I didn't ask them to write in the IEP goals. I asked them to write those things. You know, give me a blueprint of all of the things that happen in here. And then we would each take a different color highlighter for any time that we were working in the same classroom together, whether it was a formal arrangement or me popping in. And I'd say, okay, I'll use this yellow one, you use this pink one. Highlight your favorite thing on that list, your favorite thing to do. Oh, well, you know what, I really love leading the calendar time. Okay. Well, I'm going to highlight my favorite thing. So I highlight, oh, really? Okay, you love that? Yeah. Oh, cool. Is there, I wonder, you know, whatever it is. Oh, I love coaching kids. I love working with kids. I love conferencing with kids. Whatever it is. And we would go back and forth and highlight what our preferred tasks are. So that if we're collaborating, you know exactly what my top choices are. I know exactly what your top choices are. Hey, Becky, you know, tomorrow could you do this and this? Yes, I sure can. And you're going to do this and yes, I am. Okay, perfect. And it was clear and it was clean. And even in just having that discussion of, hey, let's sit down and brainstorm all the stuff that happens in here, it gave me an idea of what your classroom is like. And I could look at it from a logistics angle and say, yeah, I could, you know what? These are all the things that happen. Well, this is what I'm best at. This is, you know, I could really help with that. I think I could do this. I have a good structure for this reading group. I like to do this. It doesn't have to be that I'm doing managerial things. But in an inclusive classroom, so many things come up. I mean, even managerial things. Think about my nephew. If you have Michael, you know, he's got a wheelchair. Who's pushing him around? Who's helping him do stuff? You know, I mean, there's all kinds of managerial things. If you have Coley, who's helping him get his stuff organized? Who's helping him do it? There's a lot of tasks, and we have to figure out who's doing what. The other thing is the IEP goals. Special ed teachers, as you're looking at inclusive settings, to me, and I stole this shamelessly from Lisa, and she has a good chart for it, but I don't like to disseminate other people's things. It's just, I draw the line there. But she has a really good IEP checklist where, you know, get in the habit of just listing all of the IEP goals and supports, just informally on a checklist, not with kids' names, but, you know, if there's something like written consequences posted on the wall, you know, a scribe, a this, whatever, you just list the whole list of it. And it just becomes a checklist so that every day, one of us is looking at it and say, oh, do I have this in place for today? Do I have a scribe? Who's my scribe? You know, and you have a list. Oh, who's setting up my access center? Who's doing, you know, use it as a regular, fluent part of your classroom. These are things that we just always have in here. But make it checklist style so you know you always have it. You're not worried about whether or not you're meeting those IEP goals. You have planned for it. You have a checklist. And it's hard to remember all those things unless you're that specific. So I always use checklists. Lisa uses a lot of checklists. I use a lot of menu type things to get the ball rolling with the planning piece. Because inclusion can't be about making it harder for us. It is already hard enough. And I know that it is stressful for teachers today because you have such expectations placed upon you. And it feels unreasonable, and it is, to expect every single kid to achieve exactly the same. That is not the fault of inclusion. That is the fault of a system in which what we do is driven by politicians who are not educators, they are politicians. Yeah, I said it out loud. I'll tell you a true story, that's not rhetoric. I'm telling you that is the truth. My sister is an actress, and she's asked, because she one time did a special on making over schools. She has no background in education, but she gets asked to go to D.C. to talk to policymakers about education. And at least my sister has the good grace to excuse herself and walk into the ladies' room every time she's asked a question she can't answer and call me, Becky, he wants to know what I should do. What should I do? And I'm like, tell him you have a sister with a PhD in this. She's like, I know. She said, I'd tell her, I'd coach her up, I'll go tell him this. She's like, okay. My poor sister, she's on Larry King Live with, this was about 2 years ago. She calls me from the green room of Larry King Live, where for some reason, again, she's somehow an expert in education. She calls me and says, oh my gosh, I'm about to go on camera with Jerry Weingarten and the head of the teachers union about teachers and grading teachers. And I don't know what to say. I said, okay, look, for this first segment, just go out there and crack a joke or something, and like just be funny and nice, and call me at the commercial break, and let me see what Jerry Weingarten says, and I'll tell you what to say. She's like, okay. So she hangs up. I'm watching live my sister on TV. She just kind of humbly, smiles and cracks a joke. She calls, okay, what'd you think? So then I'm watching it, and then I'm saying, okay, go back and make this comment. It's that stupid. It is that stupid. It's all that stupid. And that's why I'm telling you, the problem is we have to advocate for sure. But when I said show, don't tell, complaining doesn't help. If it did, we'd be in a better spot. So we really do have to think about what can we do to show success. And until we can show this is what success looks like for Michael Hines. Look at him reading that. That is success. Not the fact that he couldn't pass our state test. That's ridiculous. So we have to figure out, what are we doing that is noticeable, that is good, that is marketable? Because the truth is, you have to start defining what success looks like in an inclusive classroom, because other people aren't sure what it is, and that's the truth. We have to mobilize and decide. And I'm going to share with you some examples. I'm going to cue this up of some best practices from the teachers at the school that I mentioned. Becky, it's all good. It's all rhetoric. How do we get results? I'm going to first introduce you to Doris and Kim. These are teachers at our charter school. And I'll tell you that hang on a second.
So we also piggyback that same idea of creating the different levels for students when they do their expository writing as well. Our life science project is having the kids take a habitat and exploring that habitat in terms of what the general characteristics of the habitat are, and then finding a specific place in the world and finding the characteristics of that as well as the animals and plants that live there. We have different levels of that. This is one of our higher students in our reading levels, and she's going to end up writing 9 paragraphs in this research paper, including all of the animals that she's researching.
You might think that that's a lot. However, it's delineated almost sentence by sentence. So that provides the scaffolding for her to know exactly sentence number 1 is going to include such and such, sentence number 2. So it allows a third grader to be able to generate that kind of lengthy report.
And within our science, what we did was give the kids all the organizational tools to be able to complete this. Because we looked at the characteristics of each and every biome. We looked at what the classification of all the animals are. So the kids have all of that information already. They just need to pull it all together in this organized fashion. And the other important thing about what we're doing with this is teaching the tool of the kids actually writing right into the computer. They're not writing it out first. We're typing the thing right into the computer, which is why the guideline really helps them a lot. Scaled down to some of our students who are only going to be able to research 2 animals, and their research paper is only going to end up being 5 paragraphs. And that was shooting the moon on that one.
Yeah, and we don't have an example for you, but for those kids who are probably in 3rd grade, maybe reading 1st grade level, they're doing a 5-paragraph, but what they're doing is more like a closed procedure. So that paragraph is constructed for them, and there are blanks that all they need to do is fill in. Then for those kids who, again, have difficulty writing, reading, talking, and moving, they explore the animals, but we pull it up on a PowerPoint. So we ask them, well, what's this animal? And their goal for this particular thing is that they can say that's an animal, and how does an animal eat, and what piece, what are we talking about here? Is it a trunk? Is it an ear? Is it a something? And then how do they do that? And then their expository report is right here, and they're able to read every single word and identify all the adaptations of that animal.
And that is that is what differentiation looks like in a really, that was Michael's expository writing. That was his elephant report. And those were his teachers who collaborate. It's co-teaching, well, yeah, but it's really just collaboration because nobody's ever standing up taking turns talking in there. Everybody's so entrenched in digging in and doing it. But you probably, as you were listening to that, I hope what jumped out is that idea of the tools, because they mentioned really specific tools. And you know what? That's the hard part about including such a wide range of kids. It's so much work to get all of the tools together. I got this one for the people who are doing 9 paragraphs and this one for the ones who are doing 5 paragraphs. But I love that they have support to extend the learning. That's what we're losing a lot of in our classrooms today. Inclusion never meant let's water things down because we have some kids who can't do that much academically yet. It means teach to the top and let's provide support wherever you are so that you can do your best work. And that's really the change that we have to consider. I'll tell you, in my daughter's class last year, we have in Florida, I don't know what your scale is, we have a 6-point writing scale. Like 6 is the highest you can get. At my children's school, the highest score in the entire school was a 4.5. A handful of kids got 4.5s. That was the highest school-wide. And that's after the school invested a lot of money in all kind of writing initiatives, etc. But I knew that was going to happen because my daughter, who's a bright kid and a very good writer, every time she would read to me her writing, it would start with, did you ever, blah, 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 wow, blah, 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 blah. And then 5 paragraphs, and it was so formulaic, and I tried to tell her, Zoe, that's good, but it's not great. That's good, but it's not great. And she didn't believe me because she had been taught this is the one way to write. And she would not veer from that. And when even the kids who are your best writers are scoring proficient instead of excellent, we're not doing something right. And I couldn't even compel my daughter to write anything differently because she doesn't believe me, she believes you. And so I was kind of annoyed. She was heartbroken that she got a 4.5. All the really successful girls who score off the, all straight A's always, to not be excellent, it was a real shocker to them. But I knew when we were doing it that somebody was putting a ceiling on them all. Because we've been teaching to proficiency and not excellence. And it's tricky, and it's a really hard nut to crack. Collaboration gives us an opportunity to talk with other people. How can we extend this? Who's got a good idea for extending this? And I hope that just that simple idea of, oh, why don't we give them an example for support for a 9-paragraph and a 5-paragraph and a 3-word writing sample if needed. Take a moment, ask yourself, just think about just writing for a second. What kind of scaffolds do you have right now? What kind of scaffolds do you need in writing? Take just a moment to discuss that at your table, because you have to get ideas from other people. What are you doing now? Are you using that kind of approach? And if you're not, who has one? Put it on your wish list. I need that. Becky, get Doris and Kim to send me that. I will. All right. And so as you're thinking, I want to kind of put some of these pieces together. I mean, think about the menu idea here. So if I'm good at creating writing supports, I'm putting that on my list of tools or targeted skills. Wouldn't it be great to be able to work with somebody and say, hey, Becky, can you get me something? I feel like we've got kids at this level. I don't care if I'm co-teaching with you. I'm collaborating with you. But I need to know exactly what's going to be helpful to you. And so we have to start thinking about our work as looking and feeling a little different these days. Let's be experts. And I'm going to share a couple of more video clips. I'll tell you, this is from a video that Lisa Deeker and I have called Winning Strategies for Inclusive Classrooms, which I'm not trying to sell. Get your PD people to buy it. It's too expensive. You don't want it. But still. But I want to show these because these are authentic classroom clips, and you'll hear me and Lisa doing a voiceover because we did it coach style, where we're doing it kind of play-by-play. And I'll try to let it roll. It's really hard to listen to yourself. So, but I'm gonna show some pieces of this because I think it gives you some really good examples of how it can look. And we filmed this at an elementary school in Gainesville, Florida. I've tried to cue it up to just start at a specific place with some strategies. Let's see if that worked for me.
C-squared is when...
It was given to me by Sam. Sam brought this book. We read it in our book club, and we're going to read it later. Sam, do you remember where you got this book?
No,
you
my
don't?
mom got it.
Your mom got it, and she brought it, and you know what? She gave it to our class, so we can put it in our book clubs. That is really great. We'll put it in our book clubs, and then you can check it out and take it home too.
So this is an example of a really traditional teacher. This is how she's always
Okay, we are ready.
Classroom.
We are ready for our next activity. And
so, Becky, we're seeing here a classroom that you've coached, and we've got the general ed teacher getting ready to work with kindergartners. What's happening here? What do you think?
Well, this is a speech teacher, and I'll tell you, she was so excited about being on film because so often we forget about other professionals in our school. And here's a great example of somebody who brings a new energy, a new perspective into this general education setting.
We're going to be having a special center. We're going to be working with words. We're going to take them apart, put them back together, talk about their sounds. We're going to have such a good time at center. So if I think of the word Samantha, let me see how many parts are in that name. Count with me. Samantha. Want to do it again? Samantha. I think that had 3 parts. Yeah, that had 3 parts.
Well, and I think it's great that she's moved into a station. She really has this rich background in literacy, and too many times that's only given to 1 or 2 students. I love here that she's really, again, working on students' IEP goals, but at the same time, she's providing rich instruction to every child in that class, and so everyone's benefiting. Isn't that really what we're looking for in the outcome of those schools? Everybody being a content expert in this room in literacy, but each having a role related to management, speech interventions, reading to kids, working with kids one-on-one in language.
There's 2 of us in there. 2 of us should be doing something to support the instruction in the room.
You know, when we write, we start from left to right. So we go this way. I'm going to put down 3 squares for 3 parts of Samantha. Let's see how that would work. That would be Sam and the. Sam and the.
Well, you know, Lisa, with station teaching, with the alternate teaching, anytime we're doing any kind of grouping with kids, the key is to make sure that it's invisible who the students are in there with special needs. So this teacher in a truly inclusive classroom is going to be working with all of the kids. She should be, if she's following her coaching, she should be switching groups soon.
All right, our time is up. I have to work with another group. I will see you again and get my new group here. Let's go, change places.
I already know you.
Ms. Hall, tell us a little bit about what do you feel is the hardest part of co-teaching?
The hardest part is always planning, because we don't have, our schedules are so busy, we don't have enough time to really polish a lesson together, to have a seamless transition. Having said that, though, the best part is really that I get to come into a classroom, I work with all the kids, whether they're in my caseload or not, and we can tease out those that may be having difficulties and make sure that we try and prevent that difficulty from becoming a greater problem. So being here in kindergarten is such an opportunity in primary intervention, because as we prevent those reading difficulties, if we can save a child from having problems in first, second, third, by doing phonological awareness, print awareness, even beginning writing with them in this setting, which are truly language-based.
You are. Are you looking? It says, I'm special, I'm me. And do you know what this
In
means?
kindergarten especially, we have lots of questions, a lot of times about speech and language. So I can watch what she does with children and do that myself. I can also ask her specific questions when I have a question about a specific child's problem with language or speech and get her opinion on things to try.
Okay, this is a baby. What's at the end? What's the sound at the end? Baby. You're right, it's E. So let's look and see. Is that it?
So working together is very helpful in deciding how best to serve the children.
I'm gonna pause there for a second because I want to point a few things out about this. We honestly, when we shot this, we just went into their school, and if you notice, like at the stations, different people would be at different stations. It was just based on real collaboration, who they had at any point of day. The kindergarten teacher uses this idea of real collaboration, and she invites people in. Hey, this is when I do these stations. Sign up here if you can come in and be a part of my stations. You know, it's about giving. Then she can sit down. That content expert, that kindergarten expert can sit down one-on-one for a minute and coach a student, because she has other professionals around her also leading important, significant activities. And that speech teacher was really one of the nicest. She was so sweet, and she was like so thrilled that we were there, because she actually likes to be a part of the bigger picture. So when I was saying earlier that idea of who are the players, that's what I mean. That's how it can look. But it means we have to figure out really who all of our players are. I'm going to ask you one more time to think about that exact question. Who do you have in your school around you that you could start pulling into your team? The speech teacher's not there co-teaching all day. She's popping in for 20-minute, 30-minute chunks. But it's helpful to everybody, not just the kids who need her, but to the teacher who has to support these kids without her, to the other kids around who can help coach. It's important to everybody. Think one more time. Who's your team? Who could you ask? Who do you have? Do you have a reading person? Do you have a math coach? Could you ask them to come in? Could you ask them to come in and collaborate? All right. All right. All right. And so, it really is about thinking, it's about how can we build something? Who's willing to be on your team? Who's really willing to work with you on this, goal toward it being more inclusive? And if you need really good physical supports, like, tools, you ask around. Barter. Hey, I'll trade you some lesson plans if you'll trade me some of those tools. Barter time. hey, do you have any time that you can come in and do stations with me? You'll be surprised when you start asking how many people would like to come in and support you. I actually, even as a gen ed middle school teacher, I naturally kind of collaborated. Our principal came in and did stations with us. It was really compelling for the students to have the principal come in and do academic stuff. You know? I have worked over the years with people who would come in and do all kinds of things. If, for example, if you have a class, for example, if you have a class that's particularly tricky to wrangle, that's my nice way of saying not the most fun you've ever had, think of stations, divide and conquer. Who can you invite in and say, hey, you know what, I would love to do some discussions. Call them discussion stations, for heaven's sake. But the goal is to change something visible. Bring in somebody who a student might only have had negative, interactions with because they only see this person when they're in trouble. Bring that person in to be a discussion leader. Know what your administrators are experts in. And you know what? I know it's funny because I know some of you don't have administrators who would do it, but I guarantee you some of you do. But it takes us thinking. Again, let's reshape something. Think about how it all looks right now. What other layer can I add to what I'm already doing well? Let me think of another layer to add. I'm going to show another clip from the younger classroom, and this, I think, is a behavior clip. We'll see.
Our special educators using her expertise here in behavior management.
Yeah, what's she using? I see she's got something in her hand. What's the clicker for? What's going on with that?
I am all about the data, Lisa.
I know you are.
As a special educator, it's not only, a role we need to fill, it's our responsibility to continue to collect data on students, to continue to set goals for them. In this case, this teacher's simultaneously leading a circle, but she's also helping to support a kid's specific behavior goals.
Well, and I think it's interesting we see a young man choosing to get out of his seat, which I know that surprises you. We don't see that happen ever in a classroom.
James, come back and sit down, please.
But I think it's great, one, that he came back quickly, but I see her quickly jotting down data from that, which to me is really what should be happening, is that if I walk into a classroom anytime there's a special, they should be able to instantly say, this kid's IEP goal is this is what I'm working on. But I notice also the general ed teacher knows that child's goal. And I think that's what we need to make sure is articulated across the classroom.
Lisa, anybody can hold a clicker.
Yes.
And if I'm planning around my time, I know if I'm doing a 5-minute activity and I'm doing a frequency count with my clicker, I can tell you in 5 minutes how many times that student got out of his seat.
And I think it's great. We see that data in action. And again, clear roles and responsibilities of each teacher. Everybody being a content expert in this room in literacy, but each having a role related to management, speech interventions, reading to kids, working with kids one-on-one in language.
Because I have to go into different classrooms, I have to adjust to the teaching styles of different teachers. So I have my own personal style, but I have to adapt my style to every classroom that I go into. And then sometimes there's multiple adults. So it would be the lead teacher, maybe a paraprofessional, maybe a speech pathologist. And so we're all collaborating on the fly. We don't have as much time as we necessarily need. And then you have to just learn how to adjust and make every moment count. I think that's the part.
I think we're about to see the para come into the picture doing calendar time. Can you explain a little bit about the coaching you did related to paras and calendar time?
Well, again, as somebody who's actually been a paraprofessional, Lisa, I've been a paraprofessional, I've been a general educator, I've been a special educator, so I feel like I've kind of seen how it feels to have, each of those hats. And as a paraprofessional, in the coaching piece, again, specific. Give me specific things to do. And in this case, the paraprofessional's not just hovering over one child with disabilities, but making sure that every single child in that classroom has a chance to feel special.
Well, and I love that the calendar time is not just one large group, but again, using those expertise of individuals and saying, let's bring each kid up and have their own personal calendar time, and then let's go for a large group. So it's almost that pre-teaching, alternative teaching model, but with a paraprofessional in that role.
Absolutely. And when we have the luxury of a paraprofessional, we want to maximize that. If you have a co-teacher,
blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to make you listen to me talk on video when I'm standing right here. But the point is, that same idea of the menu, the same idea of the instructional and managerial lists, if you're including kids and you have the support of a paraprofessional, give them a list. Give them a list. Here are the things, here are the things that we need. Check off which of these you think you're going to be able to support. A lot of times, paraprofessionals come in to support kids and they're unclear. They want to hover over kids with disabilities because they want to feel like they're doing their job. But then it's kind of stigmatizing to the student with a disability if that's all the person's doing. And I can't tell you the number of times I hear people say, "Spit up, Johnny, Bob." And it's like, you're calling attention to this guy for no reason. So if you're using a support model that includes other people, consider the planning piece and how it can look. How many of you guys have any kind of paraprofessional support, or if you go to a more inclusive model, likely will? Anybody? Some of you guys? Okay. And that idea of a checklist, I always put my checklist as a laminated board. Like I just laminate a paper, a thick piece of paper. Make my list and I laminate it. And then on every morning, I just check off the things. These are the things I really could use your support with today. And if I give my paraprofessional something like, instead of just me standing here talking about the calendar, a personal interaction with the calendar, that's actually meaningful because the student has to engage in a conversation with her. And I can be doing something else, and this student has a responsibility to actually demonstrate and perform. So it's not that I'm saying don't do whole group calendar stuff, but I am saying think about how you can increase the appropriate interactions with adults when you have multiple people in there. And think about the needs and goals of your kids. Maybe that's a once a week thing. So on Thursday, I check off, a one-on-one calendar time. And she knows, it's 1 minute per kid. No more than 1 minute, or you'll never get them all in. 1 minute. Here's a list of questions you can ask. I give her the instructional supports. Here are the questions. After doing it a few times, she understands the questions to ask. But it's that idea of being so specific. I'm going to ask you to think, what's one specific managerial thing in your classroom right now? If I had somebody in there with me, or if I currently do have somebody, what's one specific thing? It'd be great if they picked up this one thing. What would it be? What's one thing that would be really helpful to you right now when it comes to supporting kids in there? And it doesn't have to be kids with disabilities. Every kid. What's one little thing? As you're thinking about your own setting, and you're thinking about the supports that you currently have, or don't, I want to give you one tip about the support piece in general. As you're moving into more inclusive settings, in terms of things that you need, if you need more support, you have a better chance of getting it if you can ask specifically for support. In other words, if I go to an administrator and say, I'm really working on the inclusion piece, I want to add some layers of instructional strategies during third period, which is 8:30 to 9:15. I need a paraprofessional or co-teacher from 8:30 to 9:15. It's a different conversation than I don't have enough support. You see? The more specific you can be, the better chance you have of getting what you're asking for. Because if you file it as a complaint, people don't listen to it. They've got a lot of complaints coming in. But if you frame it as an action item, then it's a problem I might be able to solve for you. And if I'm your school leader, it becomes hard. It becomes difficult to solve all of these problems. But if you say, can you get me somebody from 8:30 to 9:15? I talked with Kim. She has some time and she's interested in collaborating. It's a yes or no. It's a yeah. Go ahead and talk to Kim. If you guys can figure it out, do it. Come with a solution, not the problem. Yeah. Come with a solution, not the problem. And so as you're thinking about all of this, look at these different service delivery options. Co-teaching is one of them. Support facilitation is something that people do, which collaborative consultation is the way it's written here. It doesn't matter. It just means somebody comes in sometimes and helps you. Co-teaching is the most direct support for you. But if you can't get co-teaching, ask for collaborative consultation. That means maybe I come in 3 days a week and I do stations while you do stations, and we structure it around really specific tools and layers that I bring. Maybe I come in during writing time. The examples that I showed you with Kim and Doris, during their reading time, they bring the Army. All hands on deck. That school very specifically and strategically has everybody at different reading times to the best they possibly can, so that we can flood classrooms with extra people to do really small group reading things. Or 3 kids on a computer listening. They're very specific and very focused. So I asked you earlier, what do you need? If you don't know, you do need data. Data doesn't have to be as hard as it seems. You know what the easiest kind of data to start gathering right now? If you're a gen ed teacher and you don't have an influx of kids with disabilities right now, start collecting the following kind of data, just informally, so you'll have a benchmark. Count the number of words kids are producing. On your typical kid, go back and find your typical writer in your classroom right now. How many words does he put on paper in a given activity? So then when you get Coley in your class, you can say, well, the typical learner in here is putting, 20 words on paper when I ask him to do this activity. Now I have something to compare Coley's work to and a way to set a goal for Coley. Oh, when he comes in, he's only doing 1. Typical is 20. Let me set a goal. Coley, let's you and I set a goal. Let's try to get 5 on this paper by the end of next week. That's how you're going to get success from someone like Coley. And when he feels successful putting 5 words on paper, he's going to be willing to try 6. But if he feels like a failure because he's not putting 20 down the minute he walks in, he's going to sit and do very little the whole time he's there. So when it comes to support, it's not just about the literal physical tools, it's about what every kid needs to feel successful in your setting. Think for a moment about one physical thing you can change when you go back that would support inclusion. Maybe it's the way your room is arranged. Maybe it's the way that you give instructions. Maybe it's the kind of strategy support tool that you use. Take just 1 minute, and we're going to close it down. Look at the targeted skills, for example. Is there one specific thing in there? Is there one specific thing? Oh, maybe I should have a little strategy station. Maybe I should have a little discussion station that kids can choose to come to. Maybe I need an instruction station where I always sit at a certain time of day so anybody can come back and hear information repeated. Think about the classrooms you just saw. My goal in providing you guys the clips, my goal in providing the clips of the teacher with the clicker, think about your data. Think about if there's anything that just frequency count, straight up frequency count. How many times do kids get up out of their seats right now? And what do you want to change about that? How many times do they talk out? Count it. You know what's easier still? If you have somebody else in there to help you count it. I always like to close with this idea of, yeah, we're all trying to win this game, and when it comes to achievement, when I say get back to basics, I don't mean reading and writing and arithmetic. I mean sheer, true collaboration. I mean really taking a minute to sit down and say, you know what, I can't do it all right now. Let me start with this one kid right now. If you try to do it all, you're going to put yourself in a cycle to feel like a failure yourself. Start with one kid, try one thing. Say, oh, that worked. Let me add another one. Let me add another one. Let me ask who else around me can help me. And it's hard sometimes as teachers to ask for help, and I know that. And I always, end this way. This is my daughter. The first time she ever got on a surfboard. Some friends had a birthday party for their kid, and when you live in Florida, I live near Daytona, they have surfing parties. Like, not everybody, just my friends. So they hired a coach to come and teach everybody how to surf and let the kids surf. It was a really fun party if you're Zoe Hines, because you actually sit and listen to the surf coach. And because my daughter, when you tell her what to do, she is the perfect student. She listens to you, she believes you, she tries her best. And so after listening for 20 minutes, Zoe dragged that surfboard out there and rode the first wave in. Because she listens to you. I would love to show you a picture of my son doing that. Sadly, my son, like all the other boys there that day, was like playing in the water, throwing sand. He never looked like that on a surfboard, trust me. Because he didn't listen. And everybody was being taught in exactly the same style how to surf. But I sat on the shore and I was holding my nephew, who was also at the party, and I was crying. Because Michael kept pointing at Zoe saying, "Hey, Becky, I want. Because he just wanted to do that. And I was crying because there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do to make him feel like that. And I pulled him through the water and I laid him flat on a surfboard, and he was so mad at me. He didn't want a different experience. He wanted to do that. And it broke my heart, and for 30 minutes I cried, sat on the beach and cried watching my daughter surf. And it's a horrible feeling because I want to celebrate her. I really wanted to just enjoy that myself, and I couldn't because I felt so bad for my nephew. And it hurt me until I finally looked around and thought, you know what, I am not the only person on this beach. I cannot do it myself. So yeah, hey, man who I don't know who has a surfboard, come over here. Hey, Lisa Deeker. She always appreciates me showing her in her bathing suit. Lisa, get up and come over here and help me. And if he was yours, you would ask every person, you would pull in every resource to put that look on his face. And it's not easy. That picture doesn't tell the story of how hard it is for two middle-aged women to run through waves holding up a small boy. So no one has to tell me that it's not easy, because I live it and I know it. And here's the secret about success in the elementary classroom. You all know how to teach. There isn't any secret to teaching him. The secret is to find the people who have the skills that you don't have and work together to get that result. And so I do have, the video of Doris and Kim. It is on YouTube. And I have some other behavioral, I have some other ones that I'll show tomorrow and some other pieces from the other clip. Collaboration only works, really, if we all know exactly what our goal is. And your goal might not be the same as your goal. Your strengths might not be the same as your strengths. And you can't let people tell you there's one right way to do it, because the right way is the way that gets you the results that you want. So thank you guys for your time, and I'll look forward to seeing some of you guys tomorrow.